Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Voicing Artists' Original Characters. Let's get started. Our character today comes from an artist named Monster Senpai, and this one is gonna be fun because we had a little bit of this earlier in our first episode. It's one of my favorite things to get. It is a character with no history, no background, no personality traits, not even a name to speak of. All we have is this drawing to go off of. This beautiful, creepy, dead space looking drawing, like anime inspired, dark colors, emo scene punk girl. I adore this. You all know creepy's my energy, so I'm already thrilled that Monster Senpai let us use this piece in particular and this character in particular. So let's get down and dirty into what I perceive of this character from this drawing. Obviously, some words I used earlier, emo, punk, scene. I believe the title of the drawing had emo girl in it. Makes a lot of sense. It's definitely like an anime-inspired art style. There are even little hearts in the eyes, which are awesome. I love like the gloss dark purple lipstick, the weird gray in the bright blonde hair. I believe she's got sort of a snake tattoo on her breast there. That's a very painful place to get tattooed, let alone to have it be a snake. And then these interesting skeleton hands that are almost going to caress or maybe strangle her neck or pull away her hair or something of the sort. They don't appear to be her hands. That's not the assumption I'm getting. So there must be some sort of otherworldly creature or attachment that is doing this in this picture. And she has a very cold, a very dead face, void of emotions. And I love that sort of contrast in the eyes and the color choice of some of the makeup, because the whole thing screams creepy and scary and no emotion and cold and villain, and yet the colors of her eyes are bright pink with hearts in them. What? And the color of her eyeshadow and lips are a rich, rich purple. Okay, interesting choice. And then the highlights on her skin is also this pink, this very touchable, vibrant pink. I love this choice. I love it very much because it allows us to know that even though she's more of this dark, villainesque character, she has some hint of life to her. And we need to figure out where this hint is. Where is it in her that she wants to put on rich purple color and has bright pink eyes with hearts in them? They might be contacts, they might not. We don't know what world this is in. But where in her soul, in her heart, in her personality, are these colors coming from this dark, scary place? That's something very interesting to me. So let's go into some adjectives here that I found. Quiet, cold, menacing, intimidating. I really like those two. I think they're very good because menacing is this overall feeling that something or someone holds a presence that is against you. And intimidating is that that presence is more powerful than you. So these combined give us like really good villain energy. And most people don't think about the fact that they are two separate things. We often consider them synonyms. And one thing, if you want to voice act or if you want to act and work with characters, that is really helpful is to make sure you're using very specific adjectives and you know the differences between them. Because if I had just said intimidating to me means that whatever this person is feels like they could take me in a fight. Feels like they could beat the shit out of me. Feels like their presence is so much more powerful than mine is. And it doesn't necessarily mean physically. It just means that when they are faced with me, it's a huge aura. It's a huge energy. Much, much stronger energy than I might have. That's what intimidating is to me. Menacing, on the other hand, doesn't mean that that aura they give off is more powerful. It means that it's negative. It means that it's focused. It's very much focused on being superior, on projecting the fact that if you step to me, you will die. Not that you could, but that you will. So when you combine these two together, you're now getting, oh, this person feels more powerful than me, but they also are purposefully looking down on me and wanting me to be scared, wanting me to know they're better than they are, wanting me to be intimidated by them, versus someone who is intimidating could still be a hero, whereas someone who's menacing is very less likely to be. So just a little insight into how I use these words sometimes. I'll do that every once in a while when I think that certain words need to be more described so we can get a clearer picture. Some other words that I would give her: confident. Ironically, even though she seems very emotionless, I think she seems very confident. Because often people in anime shows in particular, but in series when you're villains, the colder you are and the less emotion you show, you tend to be more powerful. And the reason for that is because we have a history, a culture of seeing emotions as a weakness because you're losing that logicalness. So that's why we tend to see when you don't have emotions as more powerful. It's not always the case, and it's not always a good thing. But I think because of this, and because it's influenced by anime style here, that devoid of emotions, while it may not feel that she's more powerful, it does give me a confident energy because she is looking directly at you as well. She might not have emotion, but she's also not looking down or away. She's looking you directly in the eyes and walking straight to you. She's not leaning backwards. She's not going to let you pass. She's confident. She's also very ominous. I love that word. That just makes the whole energy like uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen. I would say that she's calculating. So she thinks things through. She processes them before she attacks. That also goes into cautious because she wants to make sure that her death blow will actually kill before she does it. And I think she's deliberate. Deliberate is another one that I think will be very important for us here. She feels so menacing, intimidating, confident, calculating, all these words we've used, that I think anything she does is specific, it's targeted, and it's deliberate, even when she speaks. We did a character earlier in the series where we talked about how they could speak, but they only choose to speak when they feel like they need to. I think this is similar, except her being deliberate is not necessarily she could speak and she chooses to only speak up at certain moments, but it's that when she speaks, it is precise and to the point, so no one is misinterpreting her, and so that people don't have questions, and so that you don't mistake her engagement with friendliness. Because she's not friendly. So these are some words that I very much like, and I think we should throw all those in and play with a neutral line. We don't have a backstory for this character, we don't know what these creepy hands are, but I don't think that we necessarily need to make one. Maybe we'll add a little bit of a scenario here and there, but I think for the neutral line, I am going to stick with the idea or the concept that she's a villain. I really want to do a villain character. We haven't been able to do one. And so we're going to make this more of like a villainish anti-hero style. And we're just going to go with our personality traits for the neutral line.
I don't care. You can do it if you want to. But you will die. You know that, right?
Yeah! That's the energy I want. The energy of, well, I don't care if you die. It doesn't affect me, but do whatever. Right? It's very angsty, it's emo, it's whatever, you're stupid. That's what I want. But it also brought in that devoid of emotion to where she's not quite sarcastic. Because I wouldn't put sarcasm on her. I don't think she's making jokes. She's much more callous than she is sarcastic. So the reason why they would have similar dialogue but be said differently, because we could have said that same thing with a sarcastic tone. We could have said that same thing as if we were like, oh, whatever, you're so stupid, you're gonna die, but we didn't. We said it very deliberate, there it is again, and we said it very emotionless because she's not sarcastic. She's not the funny man. She doesn't give me that energy. She gives me callous energy of like, fine, get yourself killed, see if I care, right? And that's what we want. I actually think that I might bring the voice down a little bit, maybe add a little bit more of that scratchiness in there. I kind of like the gargly quality to the voice, but I do like that softness too. She has this weird balance in the way that she's drawn, and this is we were talking about earlier with the colors. The colors give you the idea that she's cold but soft, which was a bit where we were in that line. And towards the end of that line, I had a little bit of a gargle, a scratch in my voice, because I was going lower into a word that I was saying. And that sort of pulled out the coldness. So I think trying to find a balance between there is a good idea. I think we did all right with that first line. I like the actual context of the line, and maybe we sort of fine-tune the voice a bit. We can do that by going into emotions. So let's start with happy. What makes this kind of a character happy? Especially since this entire time, the only way we've been describing her is emotionless. How do we make an emotionless character emotional? That's the question of the century. And that's where these characters get difficult. So happy is probably going to be one of our hardest ones to do. I think for happy, what works very well with villains, especially when you get to this place where trying to bring in emotions to an emotionless character is difficult, think what works for a villain is if you go towards the era of psychotic happy. Now, we don't want to go quite Harley Quinn because she's not bubbly, right? So we don't want to bring too much psychotic energy in there. What if we twist her happiness with a little bit of pride? A little bit of pleasure, a little bit of sadism, taking pleasure in someone else's pain. Some of these adjectives that normal people would not associate with happiness, with joy, with cheerfulness, if we mix those in with her happiness, we will find it easier to experience it and to play with it. So let's see if we can do that a little bit. Maybe her happiness comes from the fact that she has won some sort of battle or engagement or interaction with what would be a hero character. In some way, shape, or form, she feels like she has beaten them. Whether she did or not is irrelevant. But some way, shape, or form, she feels like she is victorious. And so the type of smile that her pure happiness might even have is just like a slight little smirk. She might be the type that's like, you think you're better than me and I just proved you wrong, versus crazy all over the place villain. So let's try that for her happiness.
I told you you couldn't beat me. And now look at you. Broken. Cold. And no one is coming to your rescue. It's delicious.
Oh, yes! Oh my goodness, that was a great choice to do happiness with her. I think there may have been a little bit of seduction in there, but there was definitely pleasure. And I find that when you do villains, it's easier to find happiness through pleasure. And that was a perfect route to go for her. A little bit of pride and ego, a little bit of reveling in their sadness and their grief and their pain and their fear. Oh, it was a great route to go for her. And we were able to do that without her being like crazy, psychotic, big smile on her face, happy. Because she wouldn't do that. That's not her. So that was awesome. And I think we struck a good balance of mixing a little bit of that gargle and also soft. So let's keep going. Let's do our other emotions. Let's get into angry. Angry is going to be fun because angry villains are always fun. It's that time when you get to just overload and like release every single violent thing that you can think of because you're a villain. So with her, we've kept this softness in her villainy. And while I do think she would show more emotion, I don't want to go too crazy, the same way we didn't go too crazy for happy. However, I do think this will be her craziest emotion. And I'm going to compare it to a character in particular because I think it's a good reference point. The final fight, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched the incredible show, the final fight between Zuko, Katara, and Azula in Avatar. Azula, at this point, is off her rocker. And when she's beaten, she is chained to this grate, and she's rattling these chains, and she's screaming and crying and just awful, out of her mind. We wouldn't go that far with this character because this character is not nearly as exposed with her emotions and doesn't have nearly as much pride as Azula has, which is what caused that fiasco. But that's where we want to draw from, because I would take that as the tipping point, the top end of our scale. If we had a character that was a bit more open during her normal state, we'd go up there. But since she's a little less open than Azula is, we want to take that Azula happening and we want to drop it down by maybe you could do percents, you could do steps. To me, I'm going to say 50%. We want to drop it in half. And that may seem like a lot, but personally, I think it's better to have an example that is way too crazy than to have one that is nowhere enough. It's always easier to tailor someone down than it is to get more out of someone. So if we think that crazy and we hit a little too high with this character when we first try and do anger or another emotion, we can always bring it down a step until we feel it fits. So let's think that crazy and let's see if we can get in the ballpark of about 50% of that for her anger.
I don't know what you think you are, but you are lowly scum, and you will not make it out of here alive. I'll make sure of that.
Yeah, I kind of like it. I think that was about 50%, maybe somewhere around there. I think those can be really tricky because when we do our other emotions, like happy or sad or insert emotion here, we keep in mind to a higher degree her emotionless state. And so if we compared what we just did for anger with her happy, we might realize how much more emotion is thrown into anger than there is in happiness. But that's only to an untrained ear, because an untrained ear hears our anger line and goes, whoa, she's breathing heavy and her voice is strained and all of these things. And yes, those are factors, absolutely. But all that means is that she's feeling it in an outward way, which she doesn't usually do. And that's why it feels like we had more emotion and more intensity in our anger than we did with our happiness, but we don't. It's just that she's feeling her anger in an outside way. And I think that fits with this character because we wanted that Azula breakdown moment as our reference point, and that breakdown moment is hugely outward. It's physical. It's completely thrown out to the world, and I think that's how her anger is. I think that emotion in particular, because if you remember when we started, we said she's menacing and intimidating. She thinks she's better than you. She thinks she can kick everybody's ass in this room. Whether mentally or physically is not the point. She thinks she's better than you and superior than you. So yes, happiness is intense, and we felt our happiness line just as much as we felt our anger line. But it's going to be calmer. It's going to be colder, so to speak. It's going to be softer. It's going to be more composed, is a better way of saying it, even though we're still feeling happiness as much as we did anger, because she's still in control. She's still superior to you, and that's what's making her happy. Whereas when we go into anger, we want it more of an outward expression, same feeling of intensity as the happiness, but we want the outward expression that a listener will think is more intense because she doesn't like anger. She should not have to be angry. If you are on her level, there's a problem. Not to mention the fact that you are beating her to the point where she's angry. You are in charge. You are winning. That would get rid of all of her composure. And that's what I wanted to pull in for that angry line there. And that's why sometimes it feels a little weird to be like, whoa, why is this emotion like so crazy when I feel like I didn't go far enough for the other ones? You did. As long as you feel like you felt it and you went far enough, you went far enough. It's just that it's done in different ways. And so I wanted to talk about that after we did the line so that we could compare the outward expression of anger to the composed happiness, even though it's the same intensity in feeling. All of that said, and this is why I love characters that have absolutely no info, so we can just play with them wholeheartedly. I also love villains because you get these different reactions more frequently in a villain. So now we have to go into Sad for this character. Now, Sad's gonna be interesting. We've sort of developed this idea that she likes to be superior, she likes to be in charge, she likes to know that people are under her in all circumstances. That makes her thrilled when they're beaten, when they're losers, when they're afraid. So if that's what makes her happy, then the opposite of it sort of makes her mad, right? We did where she was getting defeated, someone was proving that they're better than her, that they can defeat her, and that made her really, really angry. So if those two are opposites, then we might want to go away from that sort of altogether in order to reach Sad, because you would think happy and sad are opposites, and sometimes they are. They can have opposite causes, and it helps to channel an emotion. But in this case, we don't want to do that, since we've already used both the original for happy and the opposite of it for angry. So what would make this character, who thinks she's better than everyone and takes pleasure out of their suffering, sad? Well, I think she would be sad, genuinely sad, if she no longer has people to make suffer. Sounds crazy, especially from a normal human's point of view, right? If you're in the hero side of things, or if you're just a person who has feelings and care for other people, you would be like, wow, can't really imagine the fact that someone would be sad by the fact that they can no longer torture other people. But I think that's a good route to go with her because she's such this deep, conceited villain type of character that we're finally getting to play with. Let's go that route. Let's say maybe she's in some sort of a universe where she has defeated, she has done everything she can do, everyone has suffered, everyone has died, everyone has perished, she's in charge, she's a king, she's a queen, she's the head, right? This made her super happy getting to do all of that, wonderful, it was pleasurable, but now there's nothing left. She is the only one left. That's sad. It's almost as if she's losing her purpose. Her purpose was to be cruel. Her purpose was to make these people scared and afraid. And now she has no drive, no energy, no reason for living anymore. So let's try and channel that and make sort of a twisted version of sad. Throw in some despair because of this. Throw in some worthlessness because of this. Let's try and tie it in there and make her a bit more human.
Every day and be so excited for the people I got to watch scream and cry. But now, there's nothing left. What's the point anymore? What's the point of going on if nothing I do matters?
Ooh, I kind of like that. For her version of sadness, I like it. It's really weird for us to try and grasp a villain's sadness because they're portrayed as a villain, right? But we have to remember that they're human. They feel things. They don't think they're in the wrong. So I really like the ending that we did there when she said, what's the point of going on if you don't have a purpose anymore? Because we would think, what do you mean a purpose? You're torturing people. You don't need to do that, right? But to her, that was her job. That was her purpose. And who knows? Maybe she's from a universe where she acts as some sort of death or she acts as some sort of punisher. If she was in a universe where she, let's say, worked for hell, right? Worked for those deities, then maybe that's her job. Maybe the point is to make people suffer. We don't know. So whatever backstory we can give to this will help us be able to channel this emotion and really get in touch with, okay, how do we go through what she's thinking, what she's feeling, even though it's the exact opposite of us as a human and as a person, and still be able to make it feel sad, even if we don't agree with her and even if we're not empathetic with her. So I think we did okay with that. I like that idea a lot. I'm pretty down for it. I have so much fun playing with villains because of all these crazy emotions and weird ways that they see the world and things like that. They're just so incredibly unique, not just to voice, but to live and breathe in their energy, their vibes, their soul, their being. And so I hope that you experienced all of that energy and all of that really fun atmosphere that we got to throw in and go a little crazy and go a little cold and go a little cruel that you don't normally get to do. And I hope you enjoyed that with me because it was thrilling for me. Yeah, so that is our run with this lovely emo villain girl here, and I think it has been a great episode. So don't forget to follow Monster Senpai for more art, and get ready for the next video. All right, my friends, goodbye.